recognize the distinguished ranking member, Mrs. McCollum, for her opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your courtesy of extending this, and thank you for your statement. We have a lot to discuss. Historical high budget request, the cost of the war in Iran. Mr. Secretary, I appreciate this year that you opened up a dialogue with Chairman Calvert, myself, and with our authorizing Senate colleagues. When we last met, we asked for information to help us determine what the department needs to ensure our national security. We are still waiting for the information. We've asked several times for a complete update on munition levels, and it has not been provided. This lacking of delivery timely information for the committee is appearing to become a pattern. We've requested briefings on the status of the funds appropriated for Ukraine. That took 6 months for us to be adequately briefed. The reconciliation bill, which was enacted on July 4th of last year, we still need the details of how the funds were allocated and that were not provided to us until a 10-month wait. 10 months we waited for that. Details have been provided on Golden Dome, but only $185 billion of the program, and that's the initial research and development. We still have no idea what the costs are following on for procurement or maintenance of the program. The department must do a better job of sharing the information with us. With respect to the war in Iran, Mr. Secretary, I saw your comments in the Armed Services Committee. It was disappointing that you referred to members of both parties as defeatists. I know you won't bring personalities into this at this hearing, and I will not questionize your patriotism, nor will you question mine. But the cost of this war continues to rise as forces remain in the region. The Appropriations Committee has a fiduciary responsibility to the American people, so we will ask serious questions that need to be answered, and that's our constitutional duty. Chairman Calvert and I have asked for a breakout of funding needs for Operation Epic Fury. We need to know the impact of what it's having on the services executing missions beyond the war. The department notified us that the standard fuel price for the services has increased from $154 to $195 a barrel. That's more we have to pay for fuel, then there's less money available for training and exercise that the services need to perform. And the department does not have enough general transport authority to cover these activities without a supplemental. We must understand the department, what it will do if a supplemental is not sent to the Hill or enacted. Now for the 2027 request. The baseline budget of the Department of Defense requests over $200 million over last year's enacted level. When combined with the mandatory funding for defense requests throughout reconciliation, that's an increase of $400 billion, and that includes military construction. Together, that's nearly 44% increase in defense spending over last year. And the President proposes a domestic investment cut of $75 billion, or 10%. These cuts will have an impact on our national security in many ways, particularly cuts to education. The primary concern of the defense budget is that the administration split between discretionary funding and the appropriations control, mandatory funding that we do not control. Mr. Secretary, the administration is taking an enormous risk by asking for $350 billion in priorities through reconciliation. As we told you in our last meeting, reconciliation is not the best way to fund the department. Last year, reconciliation created broken glass, funding holes for vital programs that the appropriators had to fix, and that's why we need the information in a timely fashion. Most of your mandatory funding requests are for what you call presidential priorities, Golden Dome, drone dominance, munitions, the defense industrial base. What the administration submitted to us for these programs was a 28-page document, and that's not enough to properly explain $350 billion in funding. These programs will not be completed in one fiscal year, and they will have tails. That will put our department and our committee in a very difficult situation next Congress. Finally, as the chair did, I want to take this opportunity to thank all of our service members, active duty, National Guard, and Reserve components. They serve with honor and distinction, and I want to especially acknowledge those who have served in harm's way, including those who have fallen and who have been injured in Operation Epic Fury. Their families need to know that we will never forget them and that they have our enduring gratitude and support. Gentlemen, I look forward to your testimony. Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. McCollum. Before we hear from our witness, I'd like to recognize the distinguished chairman of the full committee, my good friend, Chairman Tom Cole for any opening comments.
Thank you, Chairman Calvert, Ranking Member McCollum, my good friend, Ranking Member Rosa DeLore, and all the members here. And welcome, Mr. Secretary and General Caine to the committee, and we appreciate all of you. And certainly you as well, Under Secretary Hurst. I didn't mean to leave you out there. I joined Chairman Calvert and members of the subcommittee by saying at the outset of this hearing that the men and women of our armed forces are the finest in the world. They deserve our full support and our commitment to giving them the resources they need that will keep them ready for the fights of today and tomorrow. Without hesitation, I recognize that a strong, agile, and effectively funded defense is not a mere priority, it is a necessity. The current threat environment facing the United States is as serious and as layered as anything I have witnessed during my time in Congress. The convergence of challenges from China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran demands that we all work together with a level of seriousness and urgency that frankly has not always characterized our defense debates in recent years. On the budget, I firmly believe that adequate and stable defense funding is a national imperative, and yet funding alone is not enough. Every dollar must reflect clear priorities, operational effectiveness, and strategic urgency. This subcommittee has a responsibility to ask hard questions about priorities, program performances, and whether the department's acquisition processes are keeping pace with the speed at which our adversaries are moving. To that end, I certainly associate myself with Chairman Calvert's concerns about a bifurcated funding of the Department of Defense. We have questions on the assumption of mandatory funding in the department's request. We need you to be a partner with us on this front. Transparency and communication are critical to ensuring that we are aligned as closely as we can be with your needs. And frankly, I do worry in the future, and I hope you address this in your remarks. This is the second reconciliation package for defense, and that creates cliffs for this committee in the future. At some point, that funding disappears, and we would have a massive increase in discretionary funding to sustain it. So how we do that going forward, when we do that, is a major concern for this committee, certainly for me personally. I also want to speak directly about the issue of our allies and partners. American power is most effective when it's exercised in concert with like-minded nations who share our interests and our values. As we look back on 250 years of our exceptional history, the truth of that statement is apparent over and over. From those who stood by us in our fight for independence to the shared mission against evil during World War II, tyranny falls when free nations stand together. America first has never meant America alone. American strength is not diminished when allies shoulder their share. It's multiplied, and we must continue to sharpen our strategic advantages. And I commend you for working to make sure that our partners are beginning to step forward. NATO remains a critical pillar of collective defense, while our alliances across the Indo-Pacific are indispensable to building a credible deterrent against rising aggression in that region. I'm interested today in hearing how this budget strengthens those partnerships and how the department's working to ensure that our allies are investing at levels commensurate with the threats that they, as well as we, face together. The bottom line is simple. We always hope for peace while maintaining the strength to defend it. We're committed to ensuring our military remains unmatched, our adversaries deterred, and the American people protected. Secretary Hegseth and General Caine, we look forward to your candid dialogue. The American people are counting on us to get this right, and I look forward to being a partner with you in that effort. Again, I thank you for being here today, and I thank you all for your distinguished service to our country. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to turn now to the ranking member of the full committee, Mr. Lauro, for any opening comments.
Thank you very much, Chairman Calvert and Ranking Member McCollum, and good to be with you, Chairman Cole and Secretary Hegseth and General Caine and Undersecretary Hurst. Welcome to the committee. The President is requesting $1.5 trillion in defense funding for the coming fiscal year. $1.5 trillion is an extraordinary sum of money. Congress and the American people have concerns about what you plan to do with this money. In fact, we have concerns about what you are doing with the more than $1 trillion you already have from last year's appropriations and reconciliation bills. How much will the president's, quote, skirmish in CENTCOM cost? I know at a recent hearing, $25 billion was cited, but we don't know what that includes or for what time period. This was only supposed to last 6 weeks. We have thus far been unable to get any reliable information as to the true cost of this war. The current ceasefire is tenuous at best, with attacks on Gulf nations happening just over the weekend. The president tweeted he will not support the latest communication from Iran, which we might agree with if we knew what was in it. But there has been a consistent lack of transparency since this war began. Media reports suggest there is intelligence that indicates Iran can survive for months at the current standoff, which means the cost of deployment of 50,000 service personnel with their equipment will only increase, as every additional day this war goes on brings with it additional costs. This administration has not presented Congress with any kind of clear or coherent strategy. Week to week, day to day, hour to hour, the rationale shifts, the objectives change. The end game is ill-defined when it is defined at all. If the administration intends to ask Congress for supplemental funding for the Iran war, then you need to come back to Congress and testify on that request specifically so that we and the American people can fully understand what this administration has gotten us into and how it plans to get us out of it. The question must be answered at the end of this crisis. What have we accomplished and at what cost? And before you come to the Congress for additional emergency funding, we need information. Has the department or any of the services utilized mandatory funding for operational activities in CENTCOM? If so, how much and from what accounts? If you can provide us with that breakout, it would be enormously helpful. And again, what is the department's estimate of the full cost of the operation against Iran to date? The $1 trillion allocated for fiscal year 2026, $1.5 trillion requested for fiscal year 2027, and possibly $25 billion for an upcoming supplemental, all as the total debt in the United States has reached 100% of gross domestic product. In other words, the national debt is now larger than the U.S. economy and about twice the historic average, according to the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. The defense budget includes requested funding for the expanded Golden Dome for America at $185 billion, though those budget numbers are tenuous. A new Golden Fleet, in which 3 ships are estimated to cost $43 billion, and billions for private equity ventures, which do not have well-defined processes or sufficient transparency. With gas prices and inflation numbers increasing, the American people just want to afford the basic necessities for everyday life. But this administration is not doing anything to help them with the cost of living crisis. In fact, the administration is making the problem worse by proposing dramatic cuts across the board to domestic programs that support American families. We have the most powerful military in the history of humankind. I am extraordinarily grateful, as my other colleagues have pointed out, to the men and women of our armed services who sacrifice everything to keep us safe. Their devotion to duty is exemplary, and it must be matched by the seriousness and the sobriety of those at the very top of the chain of command. And right now, I worry if that standard is being met. I look forward to your testimonies today and hearing the answers to this committee's questions shortly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Thank the ranking member. We'll now begin witness testimony. Gentlemen, without objection, your full written testimony will be placed in the record. Secretary Hegseth, we begin with you for a brief summary of your remarks.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, ranking member, distinguished members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in full support of President Trump's historic $1.5 trillion fiscal year 2027 budget for the Department of War. The President's budget request reflects the urgency of the moment, as was mentioned by many, addressing both the deferment of longstanding problems as well as positioning our forces for the current and future fight. I'm honored to appear alongside General Dan Caine, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and Jay Hurst, our Chief Financial Officer. And I'd like to start by thanking this committee and Congress for your partnership in securing the investments needed for a stronger and more secure America. A nation's ability to build, to innovate, and to support the critical needs of its warfighters at speed and at scale is the foundation upon which its survival rests. However, upon taking office on January 20th of 2025, President Trump inherited a defense industrial base that had been hollowed out by years of America Last policies, resulting in a diminished capability and capacity to project strength. Offshoring, outsourcing, cost overruns, degraded capabilities. Under the leadership of President Trump, our builder-in-chief, we are reversing this systemic decay and putting our defense industrial base back on a wartime footing. Urgency informs everything we do at this department. We are rebuilding a military that the American people can be proud of, one that instills nothing less than the unrelenting fear in our adversaries and confidence in our allies. We fight to win in every scenario. The $1.5 trillion budget request put forward by the President will build upon the historic $1 trillion FY26 top line and will continue to reverse the 4 years of underinvestment and mismanagement of the Biden administration. The $1.5 trillion budget will ensure the United States continues to maintain the world's most powerful and capable military as we grapple with a complex threat environment across multiple theaters. Not to mention, the budget also includes a historic troop pay increase, building on the pay increases this committee has given, and the budget eliminates all poor or failing barracks. Quality of life for our troops is front and center in this budget. By supercharging our industrial capacity and transforming how the department does business, we are restoring American commercial dominance at a pace unseen in generations, transforming the defense industrial base from the broken, slow-moving systems of the past. We have flipped the Pentagon acquisition process from a bureaucratic model to a business model, decisively moving from an acquisition environment paralyzed by bureaucratic red tape into an outcomes-driven organization focused on delivering the most for taxpayer dollars. And Mr. Chairman, you're right, it's a war of attrition against the Pentagon bureaucracy every single day, and we intend to win it. Over the past year, through historic multi-year procurement agreements, smart business deals, we have sent ambiguous demand signals to our industry partners to build more and build faster. The result has been a surge, a revitalization of our great American factories, and massive reinvestment in the skilled American workers who serve as the industrial muscle behind our warriors. Let me briefly provide you with some concrete high-level metrics of what we've accomplished over the last few months. These are announced new facilities and investments to support American warfighters. The department has helped stimulate more than 250 private investment deals in 39 states, in 180 cities, in 150 different companies, worth more than $50 billion. This has resulted in 280 new and expanded facilities, more than 18 million new square feet of American manufacturing, and more than 70,000 new American jobs. These $50 billion in defense investments in new plants, assembly lines, and factories are private investments, not taxpayer dollars. By completely transforming our department's business model, American companies are investing in America with their own capital. A historic demonstration of American manufacturing and defense revitalization, all with their money, not Uncle Sam's. This has never been done before and is long overdue from a bureaucratic model to a business model. These investments equal great things for America, American families, and American workers, and help us ensure our warfighters can defend this great country. Together with the help of the policy updates and appropriations passed by Congress, President Trump's War Department has begun to turn the lights back on in manufacturing towns across this country to forge a lethal arsenal of freedom. Where our critical supply chains are threatened, the Department of War has acted decisively to inject capital, stimulate production, and prevent adversarial exploitation. We are firing up the American economic engine at every level of the defense industrial base. Every policy we pursue, every budgetary item we request serves to ensure that this department remains laser-focused on increasing lethality and survivability of our fighting force from the front lines to the factory floors. This is admittedly a historic budget. It is a fiscally responsible budget, and it is a warfighting budget. Under President Trump, we are restoring the unbreakable might of American manufacturing that we will need for generations. We are providing for our warfighters, and we are putting the people and interests of this country first. May Almighty God continue to watch over all of our troops, and may we honor the legacy of those brave Americans that we've lost. That is our sacred mission that we will continue to execute on. Thank you again to this committee for your partnership, and we look forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. General Caine, you're now recognized for your remarks.
Chairman Calvert, Ranking Member McCollum, Chairman Cole, Ranking Member DeLauro, thank you for having me, and to all the members of the committee, thank you for having me. I'm honored here today to testify alongside the Honorable Pete Hegseth and the Honorable Jay Hurst on the President's fiscal year 2027 budget. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak about the foundations of America's strength, the 2.8 million members of our joint force. I am continually inspired by the soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Guardians, Coast Guardsmen, and civilians standing the watch for our nation, supported each and every day by their families. They could have chosen anything in their path of service, but they chose to serve our great country and meet our nation's challenges with courage, tenacity, and grit that's keeping our nation strong and safe. I would also like to express my deep gratitude for the 40 members of the Joint Force who we've lost in operations, combat, and training during my time as chairman, including 14 who passed during Operation Epic Fury, and our most recent loss, First Lieutenant Key, who valiantly gave his life trying to save a teammate while deployed on a temporary duty assignment in Africa, and we continue to hold hope for his teammate. The Secretary and I are deeply grateful for each of them and their families, and their names will never be forgotten. As chairman, my duty is to ensure our civilian leadership has a comprehensive range of options, military options, alongside the associated risks to make the nation's hardest and most complex decisions. I owe the President, the Secretary, and the Congress the truth at every turn, and my blueprint for this approach has always been General George C. Marshall. His firm commitment to civilian control and a nonpartisan military remains my constant standard, and I strive to follow his example by working with each of you and providing clear and candid nonpartisan military advice, and to present this committee with the clearest possible assessment of operational risk and readiness and executability within the unclassified environment that we find ourselves in today. As the chairman said, we're operating in a delicate and dangerous time. Global risk is scaling, and the complexities of the modern battlefield demand America's constant adaptation and innovation. America's joint force is operational at its core, purpose-built for the realities of a complex world. We're organized, trained, and equipped to execute the most demanding missions across the globe with unrivaled precision. And over the last year, our warfighters have consistently demonstrated exactly what it means to be the most capable, adaptable, and professional military on earth. We are able to accomplish this highly complicated work because we draw from a deep, enduring reservoir of training, professionalism, and commitment. Our ops tempo is high, but we're designed to sustain it, rebuilding our strength continuously. We rebuild readiness every day, we train every day, we learn and sharpen our edge every day. And driving this pace of change and maintaining our superiority requires timely, predictable, and sustained investment and a partnership with this committee and the broader Congress, and I appreciate that. and the resources that we'll discuss today are critical to modernizing the joint force and ensuring that if whatever threats emerge or when called upon, our nation can win. The President's budget supports the Department's goals of recharging the defense industrial base and the national industrial base while enhancing our military readiness. We will continue to ensure our warfighters are properly armed, globally integrated, and ready while always taking care of our most precious thing, and that is our people. And while advancing the hardware and technology essential to fight, it's the character and competence of our people, particularly the 1.8 million members of our enlisted force who make us proud every day. And they're represented today by the Senior Enlisted Advisor